This is StoryBeat, Storytellers on Storytelling, an exploration into how master storytellers and artists develop and build brilliant stories and works of art that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators of all kinds find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a rating or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great StoryBeat episodes to you. My guest today, theater and TV writer and producer Scott Guy, has 6 Emmy nominations and over 100 produced television scripts for Warner Brothers, Fox TV, Disney, Discovery Channel, PBS, and numerous others. His musical, Manson's Girls, based on the Manson Family murders, won a dozen awards at the Hollywood Fringe Festival and is now slated for commercial production. Scott is the executive director of New Musicals, Inc., where he supervises online writers' workshops, lyric labs, and script consultations. He's currently producing several musical web series in collaboration with New Musicals, Inc. For the record, Scott and I have been friends for longer than either of us will admit to, so it's truly wonderful for me to have my good friend, the very talented Scott Guy, join me on StoryBeat today. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'll admit to how long we've been friends. It's been at least 3 or 4 years.
That's correct. At least 3 or 4.
That's right.
Okay,
go ahead. Yeah, we knew each other way back in animation. That does go back a long time.
That goes back. I won't say it, but it's at least like close to 30 years.
It is. It is. I just turned 40, so
that's amazing. You were a zygote.
I was 2 zygotes. I actually, the other portion of me has finished the rest of the aging. We split the decades between us.
Oh, that's what cells do. They split.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your history. What were your earliest creative inspirations and influences? What started you toward this path toward writing and the entertainment industry and stage and all the rest of it?
You know, I started when I was very, very young, when I was 10 or so.
Mm-hmm.
I stapled a whole bunch of pieces of paper together and said, I'm going to write a story that is however many pieces of paper long. And I just started writing. When it came to the last piece of paper, I went, and it's over. I still have those pieces of paper. It was a terrible story because it didn't make any sense.
Did you ever use it for anything? Did it become part of it?
No. It was something. It was about a chicken and a girl, and around about the second piece of paper, I didn't know where I was going with it. So they went underground and they flew in the air. I don't know. At the time, I was reading a lot of the Oz books, so it was sort of they just walk around and meet things. But then after that, when I was, I don't know, 12, something like that,
mm-hmm.
my aunt suspected that I was going to wind up being a writer or something in the arts, acting, something like that. And she said, you need a fallback position. You need some practical experience. You need to learn how to type. So she bought me one of those Greg shorthand learn how to type books,
right.
And I swear this has a point. I got so bored with those, the lazy fox jumped over the, FGH, that I want to learn how to type, but I can't stand the exercises. So I just started typing conversations. I just made up 2 people sitting in a room.
Just like a writer.
Just like a writer, yeah. And it was all terribly British. I don't quite know why. And even though at age 12, they literally said hello, HALLO, and called each other gov and all that kind of thing. And so I would type a whole page, and that was my typing lesson for the day. And then the next day, I'd type another page. When I was done learning how to type, I came out and showed my mom this stack of paper. There might have been 300 pages of this thing. She
Really?
said, what is this? And I said, it's my typing lessons. And she said, no, what is this? And I don't know. I just made it up. And so from that day forward, I would just, I've just been writing. So I guess I never really decided not to write. I just didn't want to type. There you go. That's the answer.
At what point did you think to yourself, I'm a writer?
About fifth grade. So how old would that be? 13 or something like that. And in college, I declared when I got a master's degree in playwriting, and so at that point I said, all right, I better be serious about this and really learn what I'm doing.
Well, you'd spent time and money on it, that's for sure.
I spent time. Dad spent the money. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you've been writing for a really long time.
Practically since the day I met you. Yes.
Did you get training other than when you went to graduate school? Were you trained in undergrad?
No, undergrad. I was at in theater. I was in the acting department.
But
so,
you were in the arts. You understood what scripts were and all that.
Correct. Yeah, but it wasn't formal, analysis of the beats of a play. At least the analysis was from an acting perspective. And they're very similar. What, as an actor, what do you want in the scene? What are you doing to get it?
Mm-hmm.
And when that doesn't work, I'll try something else. It's the exact same beats.
Right. Exactly. And it's the same both in the theater and in film and TV, with some minor subtle differences, but they're pretty similar.
Well, because human beings are kind of similar, and they want stuff and do things to get it.
Yep, exactly.
When they don't get it, they try something else, and they either get it or they give up, and they either try something else or they want something else.
So okay, so this is you started early as somebody who was putting pen to paper or in your typewriter, and at some point you thought to yourself, theater. What was it that attracted you to the theater in the first place?
Again, that was the very first thing that came out of the typing. It was a play. It was a one-page play.
It was dialogue.
And then after that, I mean, again, the first 3-4 years as a writer. Again, I'm 12, 13. They were all plays. They were all in playwriting form. So I don't know that I have a useful answer to that.
Okay.
That's what came out.
Well, so what is it that continues to attract you to the theater? It surely can't be the money.
oh, you naive little boy. Playwrights make so much money. They make so much money that
in their dreams.
they but still you make it, whether you dream about it or not.
Well, I have to be a little careful because I'm one of the lucky ones. I actually do. I do have something out there that makes money, but most don't.
Yes.
Most don't.
Yeah. There's a book that came out a couple years ago. Do you know it called? Let's see. It's called Outrageous Fortune, I believe.
Who wrote that?
It was a. I think it was a TCG publication. Theater. TCG was at Stanford. Theater Communications
Group or something. Yeah, something like that.
Group.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's a survey of playwrights in America and who makes money at it and on average how much they make and don't make. It's a very, very bleak book to read.
Yeah, most playwrights can't make a living at it. That's why you find most playwrights with some other job as their main source of income, whether it's teaching or something else. All right, so what continues to draw you to it then? What is it about the theater that continues to draw you to it as opposed to some other occupation?
In many ways, I find musical versions of theater, opera or musical theater, to be a culmination, a fulmination of all of the arts, the visual arts where there's scenery, painting, costumes. It also includes dance and movement as well as spoken word and sung word. it's sort of all of it all at once, and I find that fascinating. I also just like words set to music.
Does that go all the way back to the beginning too, or is that something developed later?
Yeah, I think so. In those very, very early works, some of them were in, I'm using air quotes, verse.
Mm-hmm.
Some were rhymed, they were very, doggerel. They were very Ogden Nash, Edward Lear, ba-da-ba-doo, ba-da-ba-dee, ba-da-ba-doo, kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, even way back then, they were in rhymed verse.
All right, so
you know what? And in fact, I've got an emendation to your question of did I study formally. My last year as an undergrad, I took an independent study in verse drama of all things. Verse drama, and not in the theater department. It's actually from the poetry department,
right?
Yeah, at Northwestern,
huh.
And so I read. I made an alphabetical list of playwrights who had written in verse, blank or otherwise, and I started at the top and vowed to read 2 or 3 works from each one of them. I got to about the G's or H's, but there's thousands of terrible verse dramas out there.
and some of those made it onto TV, I believe.
Some did. Well, and there's some that are fine. Maxwell Anderson's plays are lovely. Christopher Fry, he writes in verse.
Right.
Labette was on Broadway. When was that now? 15 years ago. That was all in verse.
So in other words, you were early on attracted to rhythm in some way.
I think that's true. I think rhythm and stress and rhymes and structure, probably. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So okay, that's a good jumping off point into when you say structure and so on. Let's talk about the development of stories. There are obviously an innumerable number of stories out there, but as people say, very few plots. Do you think of the approach of writing a story for a musical differently than you would a teleplay or a movie, or just a straight play?
Not the basic bones of it, no. The closest structure for a musical that I have found is a sitcom.
Really?
It has about the same amount of story because there's not a lot of room in a musical for complex plot.
Right.
Those dang songs take up so much time. So there's often an A story and then a B story and maybe a C story and then a running gag D story kind of thing. And I ideally approach that from the aspect of theme. What are we trying to say? What's the point? What's the message?
Right.
What does the character learn? And generally the learning takes place in the A story, and then the B stories are reflections of that same theme. The opposite of it, or some variation of it, or some gradation of it, that kind of thing. So I very much, at the fundamental storyline of a musical, I look to the exact same elements as television and film.
I have long said, and in fact I believe I say it in my book as well, that writing for musicals is more aligned with writing for movies or TV than it is with writing for a lot of plays. Would you agree?
I agree with that. I would. I think plays have a little bit more. They're a little more aqueous. You can be less structured.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I think the audience will they're a little more patient in a play and less demanding of plot and story and the well-made play.
Well, most movies must move forward without slowing down a pace really at all. And it's the same with musicals. But a play, you can start on a topic and talk about that topic endlessly, as in Waiting for Godot, where you don't really move forward very far. But in musicals, much like movies, you have to move forward. Your plot has to go thrusting ahead. It can't stagnate.
Why is that, do you think? Why do you think an audience will sit for it in a play, but they won't in a musical? Because I agree with you, but why?
I think it has to do with patience and tolerance. When you've got, as you say, that there's very little real estate in a musical for the spoken word, because there's so much of those, as you called it, dang songs. Those I'm gonna have to put a chapter in the next book called "Those Dang Songs."
Dang songs. Only we can do a musical without songs.
I think we could do it called "Those Dang Songs." We could just do a whole show. People would love it. What are you seeing tonight, hon? We're going to see those dang songs.
Well, I know the book writer often feels like that. The book writer will write a first draft of a musical that doesn't yet have songs,
right.
and then the lyricist comes in and kidnaps all the good stuff.
Yeah, well, the librettist will typically write a play. I mean, you're writing a play, and then it gets usurped by the composer and the lyricist.
Yeah.
So I think the answer to the question is people want to get to the songs, and the way to get to the songs is to thrust forward versus to sit around and say we're just going to sing a bunch of songs, which would really then just be a concert.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have story involved, which I think is what is requisite for a show to be called a musical, therefore it has to move forward. So unlike it can't meander, because the audience is having enough trouble trying to grasp the lyrics in the songs that they don't want to be bothered with this pesky thing called a difficult plot. So
yeah.
I think that, I don't know if that answered the question, but back to asking you, because you're the guest, I'm the host.
Yeah, but you're the big money maker. So guest Schmess, you're the one who succeeded at it.
I did not know that the pants were going to be on the wrong body today. So let's. All right. So, when you've been teaching this for quite some time now, correct? You've been teaching the writing of musicals.
I have, yes.
And all right, what would you say are the most common mistakes that novice musical writers make, and how do you try to get them to avoid them, even though they probably don't often?
I think the biggest mistake is picking a topic, a subject, a storyline that does not lend itself to being a musical.
What do you mean? Explain that.
I have narrowed that down to say that a character in a musical really, 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 really needs to want something. The need and the drive has to be bigger,
powerful.
More powerful, more motivated. It's more difficult. It's just a stronger need and want. It barely matters the significance of the need and want, but what matters is the passion of the want. So let me take a couple examples. There's a musical called Kinky Boots, which
yes.
is about a guy who wants to make boots for men.
Right.
That's it. That's his motivation. That's not a huge life-changing motivation, but he really, really, really wants it because of his life culture, because of what it stands for, because of a metaphor, because of blah, 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 blah. If you were to write a musical, my uncle wanted to make some boots, and what did he do? Well, he made boots. Like, okay, that's not a musical, but it was my uncle. It's based on a true story. The fact that it was a true story doesn't make it interesting. What makes it interesting is the strength of the passion of the major character.
Good. So
I think that's a big mistake a lot of people make. They say, I found this obscure, public domain novel by name your famous writer, Dickens. There's a Dickens short story that nobody knows.
Right.
and therefore it's going to be a big hit because nobody knows about it. Well, or they'll say, I found this obscure person in history, and people should learn about this, or my uncle this, or my grandmother this, or it's based on my own life.
So you have a case frequently then where students come to you and they say, I've got something that's based on reality, and I want to make it as real as reality.
Yes, although I slightly bristle at the word students because many a musical theater writer is not is plenty a grown up. I often find that the first time musical theater writer is typically not a student, but I finally gotten a place in my life that I can get around to writing a new musical. It's an empty nester, a second career, or something like that. But yes, they often come in with an idea that's personal to them, and don't evaluate it as. But will that make a good musical?
Or does it have any potential of success in the world?
Correct.
And that is a big problem that I see I do have students at the university here, and I see that as a big problem. They don't have enough experience to understand whether something is valid commercially or not. And so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with writing something that isn't commercial, but if you're going to do something that takes time and energy, why not try to make money out of it?
Well, I have both that response and the opposite of that response simultaneously. My advice in that arena is just know whether the musical you're working on is a commercial musical or is for the love of it. Are you doing it as a work of art, and
right.
You
Sure.
don't really intend there to be an audience. You don't expect there to be an audience. And just so long as you know this one is destined to be commercial, that's why I'm writing it, or this one is an artistic exploration, and that's why I'm writing it.
Do you tell those that are writing in your workshops, do you tell them to write for themselves or to write for an audience?
I tell them both. I tell them write for yourself because you're going to enjoy that. Write for a commercial audience because the one you're writing for yourself is likely never to bring you money. The one you're writing for a commercial audience might.
Mm-hmm.
So I suggest you write both. You don't just write one.
I think that's very valuable. So what are a few of the things that a musical theater writer must do in a musical libretto or script beyond getting the script mechanics right to secure even a chance at a sale? Do you have some idea of what that might be?
I do. I have a theory about it, and it comes from television. A television writer goes to a network, a production company, a cable company, someone who's got an audience out there, and instead of saying, "I have this script, it's based on my uncle, will you buy it?" The writer's job is to figure out the networks say, we want a product that this audience is going to tune in for.
Mm-hmm.
So they figure what's the demographic, what's the taste of the audience, where can they get eyeballs? Let's create product for those eyeballs. And I find that producers in the theater, commercial ones notwithstanding, the regional theater producers or local producers, don't ask that. Don't say, all right, is there an audience for this? Let me create something for this particular audience.
They already know their audience. They want to know if you have something that fits for that audience.
Correct. Yes.
And do you I was going to say, do you teach people to write for a specific audience?
I teach, no. We have a couple programs at New Musicals Inc. which are commercial pipelines, which are designed to create shows
Nice.
For audiences. We keep that separate from the classes, from the instruction, and from the works that people bring in, their passion projects.
Right.
The feedback is different, Steve. The feedback, if someone brings in a passion project, feedback is about, what's your vision? What are you trying to say? Let's help you achieve your vision.
Okay.
For a commercial product, it's not about what the writer wants. It's about what the producer wants. It's about what the producer thinks the audience wants.
Sure. Sure.
And so it's difficult. It's a very difficult distinction to make for writers, and we often discover ourselves, trying to be clear here. Okay, so Doug, if this is a commercial product, you need to listen to what the producer is saying, or you need to anticipate what he might say. If this is, for your own love of craft or experimentation or catharsis or whatever reason, we want to help you accomplish that, and don't worry about an audience.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that shows produced that way, where you are gauging it for a specific producer, that they have the ability to go off and have other lives, or are they frequently stuck in that one rut?
The producers you're talking about, or the writers?
No, the writers. So in other words, you've written a show. Let's just, for the sake of the argument, just call it, for political reasons, you've written a show. And I don't mean politics. I mean political reasons with the producer. You've written a show that is specifically designed for this company or this producer to produce. Do you find that when you do that, that it limits further exploitation of the work because it's so narrowly focused?
I'll answer that quickly and then more lengthily. No, well, it limits it in that, let's say you're writing a red show, the blue audience is not going to be interested in that. On the other hand, the red audience is just about half of the ticket buying marketplace.
Public.
Yes. So you could write a blue show for blue people and say, okay, this is not for red people. It's just not. But there's plenty of blue people out there.
Got it.
On the other hand, what I am not advocating that writers write in a vacuum. I'm going to write a blue show, and workshop it and finish it and then go shop it. I advocate conversations with producers of blue shows before you start one, to say, contemplating writing a blue show on this topic. What do you think? Which of these is more appealing to you?
Mm-hmm.
How big, how small, how topical, how not topical. And you can do that if you have access to the producers. You could do that with conversation. If you don't have access, you could do that with research and guesswork. This is the kind of show they have produced in the past, and therefore let me, create one that I think is one of those.
Something similar to
but
demographics.
You do that before you start, before you pick the idea, or if you picked a couple of ideas, then run it through that filter and say, if it's this idea, is there an audience for it? Is that a red audience? Is it a blue audience?
It's akin to television demographics, is it not?
That's right. Yes, and to pitching.
And to pitching.
Pitching a series or pitching an idea.
Yeah, you're targeting it for a specific group or audience.
Yeah.
And then you're writing it for that specific group or audience. It has to have
Correct.
their taste and sensibility as well.
Correct.
How much do you believe in research? And now I'm talking about story creation. How do you believe in research?
Oh, I don't want to answer yes because it's so dull. But yes, I think you gotta.
That was incredibly dull.
Thank you. Takes one to know one.
No, I mean it's part and parcel of the task in many cases to have your research down, to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I have a fear of being called up by the fact police. If I'm writing a medieval thing or an Edwardian thing, to have some Edwardian expert say, no, they would not have had that kind of pistol. They would have had this kind of pistol.
Mm-hmm.
You're a fool.
Well, they may be onto something, but that's another story. So I just think that there's different kinds of research too. There's experiential research that has nothing to do with opening a book, and then there's also opening a book and going on the internet and that kind of thing. Or market research is another kind of research. I think it's important for writers to think about that thing, just what you said. Yeah, you don't want to be caught in a trap where and I see this sometimes in student scripts where they make something up, but it's clearly not proper. They just have done no research.
Right.
You know, they're making something up that sounds like it's good or cool, but it's not at all because it's so
One
totally
of the reasons science fiction is a bit of a haven because you can just make it up. You can make up the rules. Same with fantasy. You can just make up the rules. You don't have to, This is a historically inaccurate story about gremlins.
Yes, historically inaccurate. I always appreciated that in producers in TV, where you would make up some science fiction-y thing, and they would say that character would never say that, and you say, well, that ghost would never say that. And you go, well, how do you know what a ghost would say?
That's right. Do you know the book A Martian Wouldn't Say That?
No, I don't know that book.
Oh, it's literally that. It's notes from story editors that are about that kind of thing. A Martian wouldn't say that, or it's a Hitler biopic, and the note is, does it have to include Hitler? That kind of thing.
So, all right, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask lots of guests. I'm curious to see if you have an answer for me that I know is a challenging question, and that is, do you know, or for you, do you know what makes a good story good?
I know the litmus test that I apply.
Good. What is that?
And it is. I didn't make this up. It's you can read it in a book called Beating Broadway by Steve Cuden.
Ooh,
you might like it.
I'm going to get me a copy.
They're very expensive.
Not really.
It's similar to what I was talking about. Does it make a good idea for a musical? You got to have conflict. Without conflict, there's no lesson for the audience to learn or no interesting activity to observe. So, in order to have conflict, you need to have a want. So it's literally those playwriting 101 questions.
Mm-hmm.
What does your character want and why? And that why is really hard. And who or what is opposing him or her, and why? I mean, those are so basic, and yet I use them all the time. So in creating a story, I will say, okay, let me start with a want, and just grab some nouns and some verbs from the universe, and then okay, so who would oppose this person? Why would somebody want to stop her from wanting to make something up? She wants to build a ship in a bottle, and who wants to oppose her from doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And I literally, I'm not doing this to flatter you, Steve, but I actually have when I go hiking to work out some ideas.
Yes.
I have a little index card that has story beats they're your story beats. They're your version of classic storytelling beats. I literally have in front of me, when I'm hiking. If I'm stuck on the idea, I will pull out my hiking notebook, the back page of which says backstory given, inciting incident, big event in which your character loses control, point of no return, all is lost, and combat. And I think those three, and then resolution. I think those three in there, point of no return, all is lost, and combat, are the critical part. If you don't have a character in which he or she reaches a point of no return and puts everything on the line and loses everything, the more interesting stories follow that. The more interesting stories have a character who puts his life view or his or her money or family or needs and wants before everything else and risks everything.
Well, most people lead what is better known as mundane lives. and people want to leave their mundane lives in some way, and they do so through this thing in the arts that we call drama. And in order to do that, they want to live vicariously through a character who's a unique character in conflict with other unique characters. So you've hit it on the head.
I agree with that. I think there's a chunk in Robert McKee, his book called Story. I'm going to paraphrase it, but he talks about, instead of living vicariously, he talks about learning vicariously. That the subconsciously or consciously, the reason a reader or a viewer or an audience member is engaged is not just living vicariously, but what would I do if I were in this situation? Or what's this character doing? And he's trying that. Well, that didn't work. Note to self, don't try that.
Mm-hmm.
What's she doing in this scene? She's trying that. Oh, that worked. Note to self, try that. It's a way of, sort of preparing yourself for events which might happen to you. You read stories in order to learn how to cope with your world.
Would you say it's similar or different with lyric writing in terms of what makes it good?
Lyric writing, boy, this is it's diminishing levels of craft.
What do you mean?
A lyric needs to forward the plot. A lyric needs to work just like story beats work, just like dialogue happens. If at the end of the scene, whether it's dialogue or lyric, the character hasn't changed, or the situation is exactly the same, you have a static scene, and the plot has not gone forward. You need to figure out why is that scene in there. Same with the lyrics, same with a song.
Is it acceptable for a song to not move the plot forward, but to completely expand our understanding of the character?
When I teach ice, my answer there is no.
Okay.
There are plenty of songs in musical theater which are pejoratively called park and bark, where the character just sort of stands center stage and then sings. I suggest that the successful ones of those are ones in which he's not just revealing "here's I feel," but there's a change, there's a decision as a result of the observation.
Mm-hmm.
A new action comes out. I posit to you that many, 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 many songs in musical theater do not do that, and I wish that they would. I think, and it's a losing battle these days, because so many musical theater writers and songwriters come from the pop world, and the purpose of a pop song is to not move a plot forward. The purpose of a plot song is basically to deliver one emotion and stay there.
Mm-hmm.
This is the hue. This is how I feel about you, or this is what I'm thinking right now. You don't want it to change.
Right.
And so putting a pop lyric into the theater, they have different goals. And I believe a pop song does not function like a musical theater song, and vice versa. A musical theater song which changes does not function like a pop song.
Very interesting. That's a very interesting perspective. Is it the same thing with the music? Obviously, you're not going to hopefully you're not writing music that runs emotionally counter to what you're trying to do at that moment, unless there's a purpose to that.
Right, unless there's a purpose, yeah.
But, for composers, what is it? I mean, you have composers in the NMI as well, and what is it that you tell them that they should be focusing on when they're starting to think about how to write a song?
It goes back to structure. It goes back to the structure of the song. What are you trying to accomplish in this stanza? What's the feeling? What's the thought? In the next stanza, how is it different? In the B section, in the release and the change, you want contrast, and then the final moments of the song, you want to drive forward to the action. So the music should reflect the structure of the emotion underneath.
So,
If there's a character who's making a decision, that there's a format that's implied there. AABA, where the final A they make the decision, or ABAC, where they make the decision, as opposed to somebody who's oscillating, where the song structure would be A B A B A B. Like I'm reviewing the situation from Oliver. I think I better think it out again. A B A B A B, and you're out of there.
Right. It makes sense that a song is hooked into, well, the music of a song certainly is hooked into an emotional moment, because music tends, I think, to express emotion better than just about anything else.
Yeah. It often wins, really. If the music is sounding happy, even if the lyric and the acting and everything else around it is not happy, I don't think you can overcome that.
Well,
the music wins.
It would be very strange, and I'm sure people have tried to do it. Maybe you can cite some examples. I can't think of any at the moment, in which a song has a happy, upbeat lilt to it, but the lyrics are purposely downbeat or sour. I don't know if that's such a thing. Do you?
I would look to some Cantor and Ebba kind of stuff. Does Mr. Cellophane fit that?
But that felt like a vaudeville pastiche to me.
Or Cabaret. The MC's songs all kind of fit that, don't they?
I guess they're they have a hard edge to them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They're not sweet and soft and happy. But yet they have a happy beat to them. I think that's probably accurate. All right, so I want to talk about collaboration for a moment. You purposefully, I know, in your various and sundry workshops, you put people together in collaborative effort. Correct?
We do.
Okay, so let's talk about collaboration, because most musicals are written by collaborators. They're not. There are obviously some that are written by one individual that writes the book, music, and lyrics, but most musicals are written in collaboration between various partners. Talk to us for a moment about what are the advantages and disadvantages of collaborating, and what should collaborators be conscious of as they go into a partnership?
Well, the disadvantages are pretty obvious. You can't always get what you want, and that's never a good thing. You want what you want, and if you can't get your collaborators on board, you're unhappy.
This feels like the beginning of a Rolling Stones song.
Collaborating, you also are sharing your royalties. And it's and you're also the victim of somebody else's schedule and somebody else delivering on time and all that stuff.
And what do you tell people how to deal with that kind of thing? Do you give them advice on that?
Yeah, we do. Our founding director, John Sparks, speaks more passionately about this topic than I. So I'm going to paraphrase him more than speak for myself here. But essentially, 2 heads are better than 1, and 3 heads are better than 2. In that, if you are at loggerheads, I'll go back to the red and the blue. Steve, you and I are collaborating on this. You want the point of this scene to be red. I want the point of the scene to be blue. And you say red, I say blue. You say red, I say blue, and we hate each other and don't speak to each other for half a year. When you come to loggerheads, the best thing to do is to say, okay, it's clear it's not going to be red and it's not going to be blue. Let's find purple. Or red and blue. Let's find an idea which isn't yours and an idea which isn't mine. And oftentimes, the intersection of your mind and my mind is more electrifying than what's just in your mind or what's in my mind.
Is that
in that sense, two heads are better than one, or three heads are better than
the infamous 1 + 1 = 3?
Yeah, something like that.
And
the composer's perspective as a collaborator, the composer can often look at a scene or a sequence and think of it differently from the way the lyricist or the book writer would say.
Of course.
Like, I can accomplish that in 8 bars, and you guys are taking 20 pages.
Right.
Can we do this in dance? What if we do, scenes 4, 5, 6, and 7? We combine them all. The composer will often be able to say, I can solve that.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. Sometimes a single song can bridge a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
And that you would take a very long time to work through in dialogue or action, but the song itself just wipes all that away.
Right.
Because it goes to the heart of the matter. Where the other thing that I think is beautiful about songs and songwriting, that I think is very important, is that we in script writing can truthfully usually only deal with 2 senses, sight and sound. We can't deal with what's inside of a character's head like you could in a novel unless they express it verbally or show it to us physically somehow. But a song can go inside of a character and express what's interior.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the beauty part of songs, and that expression of the interior of a character can take you way ahead in a story that you would otherwise have to spend a lot of time developing.
I agree with that. It's also a dangerous area in that the conventions of musical theater are, okay, now let's go inside the character's head, and I often find that writers take the easy way out and just have them sing, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this, and we're done with it, as opposed to a Dostoevskian examination of everything that's inside the head.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, again, because the conventions of musical theater, particularly modern musical theater, are towards these standalone songs. If there's a you and I are now characters in a play, and you think A, or you think red, I think blue, and you're saying red, I think blue, red, blue, and I storm off the stage, and then you step forward and sing your song. I posit to you that is not as dramatic a song than if you were to sing the song to me while I'm still on the stage, trying to convince me that your opinion is right, as opposed to my storming off and you telling the audience how you feel about that.
Well, interesting. You're I think going back to this notion that we talked about earlier, that what audiences are more keenly desirous of than anything else is a unique character in direct conflict with another unique character. And that's sort of what you're alluding to here, is that it's more powerful to have a character singing to a character than singing just outwardly what they're feeling.
That's right.
And of course, the theater is chock-a-block full of those kinds of songs where somebody's just stepping out and singing what they're feeling.
Right. And oftentimes they're fantastic songs. They're just not dramatic songs. They're emotional, but they don't forward the plot.
Very interesting. I want to move on to producers a little bit. I know that you have both been a producer and you've been produced. And so you've had your fair share of dealings with a variety of producers, both in the theater and in the world of television, as well as executives and studio folks and networks and so on. I want to talk about notes and how to deal with producers on the reception of notes. What is your philosophy on note giving and note taking?
Note giving, in the best of all possible worlds, should be about the intention of the scene, the piece. What are you after? What are you trying for? And then try to explain to the writer, here's what I think you're achieving, and are they the same and are they different? Where I think notes can get a writer into trouble is when the producer or anybody, the dramaturg, the actor, the director, starts proffering a prescription. Here's how to fix that. You say you're aiming for this. You're actually getting this. Here's how to fix that. I think the writer should hear feedback that sounds like that,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, okay, all right, the useful part of that is what I'm intending is not coming across.
Right.
What can I do about that? And then listen to the feedback and say, that's a good idea, or that's a bad idea, or I love a variation of that idea. But the value there is, I wasn't clear, or she's right. I got off track here.
Well, oh boy, isn't clarity a huge issue all over the place?
Yeah.
I mean, clarity in the storytelling, clarity in the note-giving, clarity in the direction, clarity. It's clarity.
Yeah.
And when it's muddled, it's really difficult. And so you're for writers, when a writer or when let's talk about you in specific for a moment. You've clearly received plenty of notes in your life from story editors, from producers, and so on. How did you handle notes when you got them, especially notes that you either were confused by or totally disagreed with? How do you handle it?
Well, I got my hard knocks in TV, and you get so many notes and so much rejection, particularly at the pitching level.
Mm-hmm.
You come in with 12 ideas, hoping one is going to hit, and so you're expecting no. And in television, it's mercenary. You're trying to please the story editor, so it doesn't matter what I want. What matters is what you want.
Yeah.
My job here is to sell the script, not to sell you on what I want.
Yeah.
That dynamic is not necessarily true in theater, but that artistic life lesson is still very useful.
Mm-hmm.
When you get notes, okay, all right, I'm losing the producer here. Do I want to please the producer more than I want to please me? And it goes back to what I was saying. Is this a commercial show, or is this a show of the heart?
Well, clearly, if it's a show you don't care what other people think, then that's easy. You just take whatever notes you want. But if it's a show where they're paying you, then you have to pay a lot more attention to what they want if they're giving you the money.
Yeah, and there's a tricky middle ground there where you're writing on spec, where you're not being paid. It's
Correct.
not a commission,
right?
But you're working with or for, at or near a producer, and the end goal is the same. You want a production. You want to go forward, and so you want to give them what they want, or they're not going to want it.
I totally agree. I also I teach it sort of this way, and that is take every note, whether you agree with it or understand it or not. If you don't understand it, ask for clarity. If you disagree with it, just take the note and go away and think about it, because sometimes, though that note is something you don't think will work, it might, if you think about it, trigger something that actually improves whatever the producer had a problem with. Or editor.
I think that's exactly it. If like what caused them to give this note?
Exactly.
What's the problem here? Even if they articulated something that
Poorly.
doesn't right? They say it's not clear at all here that the hens aren't laying eggs.
Yeah.
And then you go back and look at the scene, and it says, the farmer says, well, the hens aren't laying eggs. I don't. So what is the note?
Yeah.
Because it's not that. So what's bugging him? Something's bugging him, or he wouldn't have given the note.
Well, the problem is it's a rooster.
Exactly.
All right. So when you sit down to write something that you're working on, where do you like to start? Do you begin with character, plot, setting, situation? What do you typically start with? Or does it vary for every story?
It varies for each situation, but in general, I start with theme. What's relevant? What's on my mind, or what's hot in the news, or what's important to the audience. And so, if the theme is, corruption in politics, for instance, then I'd say, okay, so let's create characters in and around that theme. Someone who is corrupt, someone who's not corrupt, someone who's corrupt but not in politics, someone who's not corrupt but not in politics, someone who's trying to defeat corruption, someone who's taking advantage of corruption, and just start, okay, someone who believes in corruption.
Believes in it.
Believes in it. That's a good thing. Like, all right, well, who would that be? Who would believe that corruption is a good thing? And what does he want? What does she want? And so I'll just run it by the theme and run characters who are positive and negative, and just start cooking up needs and wants, and then I'll pull out your card and say, okay, what's the conflict? How do they go the distance, etc.
I do not want to be responsible for every story you write, Scott.
Yes, sir, you are. Yep.
Okay, so then where do you go from there? Once you've got that, you've started. Are you an outliner? Do you like to outline?
That's a compound question, pal. I am an outliner. I hate to outline.
So why do you outline and why do you hate it?
I hate it because the document itself is so dull. It doesn't feel like writing. It feels like note taking.
Okay.
The prose is not interesting. It's just so descriptive. It's already in my head, so it's just transcribing. It's just dull. It's just boring to me. So what I'll often do is to do a beat sheet rather than outline. The only difference being the amount of grammar that I put in a beat sheet. I just kind of summarize. Gun goes off, she runs, as opposed to he grabs it, and just describing it.
It's less descriptive. I think of them in the both of them in the broad category of outlining, where even just beats with simple words in them, you're still sketching out what it is you're ultimately going to put together.
Correct. What I love about an outline is a couplefold. When you can work out arcs and story without creating a gigantic document. You don't have to spend 9 months writing a show to realize, ooh, I have a problem with that second act.
No kidding, right?
You can find a problem with the second act in a 2-page document.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
I also love having a detailed enough outline that when I sit down to write, I'm just writing and it flows, and I can see, okay, the purpose of this scene is this. The character starts here. Here's what she's going for. Here's the conflict. Here's what she's doing to try to get it. Here's how it works or doesn't work, and and you just write it. You don't have to stop and stare and go, wait, what does she want in this scene? Oh no, I'm stuck.
You've sort of worked out the way things work, and then it's a matter of fleshing that out and making it into a whole.
That's the fun stuff. That's where the jokes and the character and the rhymes. You get to be jokey, you get to be rhymey, you get to be charactery. Whereas in an outline or beat sheet, none of that.
Yeah, for sure. The script writing part of it is more of the show off, and the outline, beat outline, whatever you want to call it, is more preparatory and mechanical, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's correct.
You outline, don't you?
I do. I'm a firm believer in outlining, though there are plenty of people who do not. And I'm not sure how they do it, because I need the outline in order to feel confident about going to the step of writing a script. Otherwise, I feel like I'm going to be flailing around and not know what I'm doing. And so that's me. That's my philosophy. That may just simply be a matter of my upbringing and training more than anything else, but that's how I do it.
Do you like outlining?
Do I like it?
Do you like the actual?
No, I'm not a big fan of it either. Yeah. I'm also not a fan of first drafts. I'm a big fan of rewriting. I like to revise and rewrite. So I think of it, and I talk about this, that when you're creating the first draft of your script, not the outline, not before, the script itself, it's the equivalent in my mind as a sculptor who works in clay having to go out and actually gather up and create the clay. And that clay, when you get it up on a platform, will be lumpy and misshapen, and it won't be exactly what you're looking for at all. In fact, it may be a block of clay or something like that. It's not what the finished product's going to look like. I think of that first draft as definitely not ready for consumption, and then the sculpting comes in the second, third, fourth, and up to the how many drafts you do. That's where the art comes in.
Particularly for a musical, the first draft, I advocate, I call it a swill draft. Swill being the top of the slop bucket, the stuff you just throw away. It's literally garbage. You can't, the pigs won't even eat it.
Or a puke draft.
A puke draft, same thing, where, you write it as fast as you possibly can. You take a weekend and write the whole thing. And you don't worry about it. You don't worry about, mid-act 2, suddenly one of the characters is taken out on a southern accent. It's like, well, I had no idea where that was coming from, but all right, I'm keep going. And then later in the show, no, it's, German's going to be a bit better. And you're exploring. And a beat will be extremely verbose, way overwritten. You can go on and on and on. This is not a 10-minute monologue in the theater. That's not in no incarnation is this going to turn into a 10-minute monologue. But the idea is just to explore character diction, explore the beats, and it's a way over verbose draft.
Mm-hmm.
But where it's really useful at least in musicals. Is then you bring in the collaborators, the composer, the lyricist, and the book writer off of the swill draft. Do something called song spotting, which is, well, here's a spot for a song, here's a spot for a song.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're rigorous about song spotting, you'll linger on a particular page. There'll be an obvious choice. It's a big monologue-looking kind of thing. And so you say, okay, that's a solo, and then you turn the page. I maintain that what you want to do is to stay in every single scene and say, okay, yes, it's a solo. What else could it be? What do you mean? She's the only person on the stage. Yeah, what else could it be? It could be a duet. Okay, if it's a duet, who else is in the scene? Nobody. Well, but let's say we have to put someone else in the scene. Or, okay, it's a duet. If it's a duet, it would be blah, 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 blah. Okay. What else? And if you keep saying, what else could this moment be, you're going to wind up with a list of 120 possible songs in your show, which is ridiculous. You're never going to write all those.
Nope, definitely not.
But somewhere in that list and somewhere during the song spotting, you're likely to discover this is going to be a better song than the obvious choice.
Well, that happens frequently, doesn't it?
Yep. And having the collaborators really involved and very disciplined. Just if you're doing it in 2 hours, you're not doing it. It should take 12 hours. You should take 4 sessions. And you'll also often discover then too, off of the swill draft, you'll be able to see the structure of the conflict between these two characters. He says something, she replies, he says something again, she goes, on the other hand, and then the two of them, shake hands and go off together, having come to, meeting of the minds. That's a song structure right there.
Mm-hmm.
A, B, A, they're together on the B, and they come together on the final C.
Isn't it interesting that really good songs have a structure that moves the song story forward?
Yes.
And I think that's something that frequently I see in new musicals where composer lyricists don't understand that they aren't doing that. They're just writing stuff.
Yeah.
And,
right. More and more so. Yeah.
Yeah. More and more so is correct. Are there any special places that you like to turn to in order to find new ideas?
To what?
Are there any special places that you like to turn to in order to find new ideas?
so old-fashioned. I'll literally turn to the newspaper.
That's not old-fashioned. That's common.
Because the newspaper is filled with contemporary, literally contemporary. It happened yesterday.
Yeah.
And so they're contemporary issues. So you can find issues that are relevant, but you can also find impassioned people doing things in conflict with other people.
Mm-hmm. No question.
You get in buy one newspaper. There's, I don't know, make up a number, 40 ideas for a musical in just today's paper alone.
Assuming you can actually get your hands on a thing called a paper anymore.
That's what I'm saying. Very old-fashioned. I actually subscribe.
Yeah, that's got to be getting harder and harder to find, huh?
No, that was true 5 or so years ago, but I have heard that physical print copies of newspapers is now on the rise again.
Huh, interesting.
People that are preferring the news, who like the news that way.
There's still something about seeing all the news laid out in front of you at one time rather than trying to scan through it or scroll through it on a computer. There's something about it. I don't know what it is. Do you agree?
I can do both.
Obviously,
I've learned how to scroll. I also love that search bar. Because you can, here's the topic that's on my mind. I'm interested in, name some topic.
Mm-hmm.
Cultural heritage, cultural preservation. So you type in cultural preservation, and there's an infinite number of things to click on.
That is true. That is there are lots of advantages to the internet, and I think there are a few things that have pushed us in a wayward direction that I think we will correct over time. But
I'm hoping so.
You and me both. So we've been talking for a good hour and 6 minutes, believe it or not, and we're gonna go to the last two questions, the famous last two questions. You've clearly worked with and met lots of people in the entertainment industry over a nice, healthy career. Do you have an oddball, quirky, offbeat, funny, strange, weird story that you could share, something like that?
I don't know how funny it is. It breaks my heart every time I tell it. So maybe you can edit out the moment in which I sob.
No, that'll be my favorite part. That'll be my favorite part, Scott.
Have it be your ringtone. Which is that? What is that? That's Scott's sob.
That's Scott
sobbing. He told the TV story. Yes, he did. Oh, I know that sob very well. So as an animation writer, I got very, very frustrated having to report to the story editor, who reported to the producer, who reported to the executives, who reported to the ad agencies, who reported to the focus group, who reported to the 5-year-old. So trying to exert your will on a script and say, this is funny. It's a funny joke. Keep it in. I found it very, very frustrating as a writer of television. So I worked my way up, saying I'll become a producer because the producer has more power. Well, not so much. And here's the moment in which any illusions I had about the power of the writer in television just fell away. So I'm the executive producer of a whole franchise. There's picture books, there's plush toys, there's apps, there's videos, lots of stuff.
Right.
So picture I'm in a conference room on the 12th floor of some office building, and it's a big, gigantic oval table with 30 executives, 30 representatives from toy companies, and book distributors. They're all international. There's someone representing Australia, somebody UK, someone's doing the whole Middle Eastern region, and so on. So the purpose of the meeting is to divvy up the profits. New Zealand, you get 2% of the book rights, but only 0.5% of the video. UK, you get 12%, and so on and so on. I had gotten, and I'm leading the meeting. I'm the kingpin there. I'd gotten, I don't know, 6 minutes, 10 minutes into the meeting, and they're all taking notes, and we're all negotiating, divvying. And I went, I'm so sorry, guys. I did this out of order. I forgot to tell you what the show is all about. let me tell you what the show is all about. Reached in my my bag, brought out the portfolio, and they were all looking at me with these blank looks on their faces. And I said, "Do you want to see this?" And it was still blank. And I said, "Raise your hand if anybody cares what the show is about." Not a hand went up. And I put it down and said, "Okay, New Zealand, 1.75%. It didn't make any difference to them what the show was about.
They were just selling hats.
Just selling hats, pieces of plastic.
They didn't care.
And I knew that, but such a palpable moment. It was soul crunching. It was horrible. And for me, the beginning of the end. I just went, if who are the people that care about what I'm writing? What does it matter?
Well, hopefully the end user consumer, but they're not in the room at that moment.
Well, and at the time I was stuck in preschool animation, so the end user is a 4-year-old, and the things that I was fighting for as a writer, as a human being, I was losing the battle, and the scripts that were out there, I thought this is 20 some odd years ago. Things have changed a little bit, thankfully. But I felt a lot of the messages that were on television for kids at the time were actually destructive rather than instructive and helpful.
Yeah.
I thought they were being filled with way too much false hope of just believe in anything you want and you can have it. Doesn't matter whether you're capable, so long as you just believe. And so when I stepped back from that meeting, I felt like everything that I believe in, I believe I'm actually hurting people with my scripts. I actually feel like I would do the world a favor if I stopped writing.
Wow.
So it was bad. So is that quirky and funny enough for you?
That's a powerful, life-changing moment. It
was. And I got through without the sob. No ringtone for you.
Oh, I was counting on it. And now
I could fake one. You could have a fake sob.
I'm out of luck. All right, last question of the day. What's the best piece of advice that you have for those who are starting out in the business or perhaps trying to get to that next level?
Someone gave me advice when I was fairly starting out in TV that has turned out to be really, really good advice. You'll hear it if you play this backwards. This whole interview, you'll hear how it has permeated. Let's see. He would have been the producer. I would have been story editor. So I was answering to him, and I was fighting for things that were really important to me. And his advice to me was, Scott, you need to separate your life from your writing. Get your life in order, make sure you're happy, and now go figure out how to make money writing. Do those in that order, make sure you're happy, and then separately go write. Don't expect your writing to make you happy. You're just going to be disappointed at every turn. It might turn out one day that your writing makes you happy, but make sure you do things in life first. Don't make your work make you be happy. So you can hear that separation for me of writing a commercial show versus an artsy fartsy show. Yeah. I write a lot of artsy fartsy stuff.
Yeah.
I write a lot of stuff that I have no expectations anybody is ever going to care about
or pay you for,
or pay me for.
Yeah, because it is at the end of the day an art form, but it's also part of a thing called show business.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's very valuable advice, is to get your life
Yeah.
together, be happy with you before you try to be something you're not or something you don't
Yeah.
know how to be. Um,
And I found it pretty hard to do for a couple years because I cared so, I wanted so much as a writer to be able to influence the world and write things which were important and write, stuff that was meaningful to me and change the world! Exclamation mark. But
you and Mary Tyler Moore.
yeah, exactly. And look what happened to her.
Exactly.
Uh, so what I wound up doing that was useful to me, I put on a Post-it. I wrote 3 words. I wrote refuse to care. And that was, I looked at that when I was writing, TV scripts.
Refuse to care.
I'll fight only the first round, and if they say that's not going to go through, refuse to care about that.
Well, you're not talking about care about the work. You're talking about care about all the other stuff to it. Or do you mean the work too?
I meant the work too. Now, I don't know that I'm saying that. I'm certainly not saying that about the artsy-fartsy stuff. I think you have to care.
You're talking about where somebody's paying you and you're being a mercenary.
That's right. I mean, exactly. And the mercenary job.
Yeah, that is something that if you do enough work as a mercenary, which both of us have been, you do adopt that after a while, where you're giving, at least I did, I would give them 110% of my best work, and then gave it away as quickly as I could get it off of my desk, with as good a work as I could give them, and then I would stop thinking about it. And that's hard for a lot of newer first-timers to do because they're tied up in it.
I found it very hard. I found it very, very hard. But the antidote for that for me, I suppose I should have written a separate Post-it that said, refuse to care for mercenary jobs, and the other side say, care passionately about everything else.
Well, do you still find yourself in situations of any kind in which you say, I just don't want to care about this, but I'm going to do the job?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part and parcel with being a professional.
Yeah,
I think so.
And yes, exactly. I think that's the right professional as a descriptive of it's your profession.
Yeah, it is something that you do because people know you know how to do it, but it may not be your heart, soul, and passion. But you're good enough to do it so that somebody will give you this compensation called money, and that doesn't mean that you phone it in or be shitty about it. It means you do the best you can, but you don't get tied up in your life in it.
And it also means putting yourself in the head of somebody else. There's a reason that he or she or they want this script, and they don't want your version of the script. They want their version of the script.
Sure, of course. That's why they rewrite the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, this has just been terrific. There's so much great information in today's show, and especially I don't talk too much about musicals on the show, so this has been terrific to hear. And I have so much respect for what you've done for so long. You've influenced tons of musical theater writers.
Would that were true. Yes, would that were true.
Oh, I think it is true. It'll show up in mysterious ways for the rest of your life, I predict.
Good, I hope.
Well, thank you for coming on StoryBeat today. I've really appreciated hearing all this stuff and that I needed to be reminded about. So
you bet. It's been great fun.
And so we've come to the end of today's StoryBeat. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a comment, rating, or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great episodes to you. This podcast would not have been possible without the generous support of the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.